What if I told you there's a simple way to resolve almost any conflict? Okay, I'm making some coffee before I head upstairs to my office to chat about this day. But I was on a really good mastermind call today, and we talked about conflict. And we're a business mentorship, but when you have a good principle, it applies to any area of life. So it can apply to marriage or relationships or whatever else. We have coffee time. Oh yeah, I'm Matt Chenard, leadership and business coach / consultant. I help entrepreneurs build cash flowing assets and get away from time stealing liabilities so they can spend the time where they want it while they create impactful businesses that serve their family and their clients. That's pretty good. Decaf. I only can have one coffee a day. Bugs my heart if I have too much. Caffeine. Whoa, 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 whoa. Too long. Didn't pull it out fast enough. Too much foam. Not good, friends. It's not bad. I was too hard on myself. I'm trying to work on art. My art pieces. Good, not great. Let's go upstairs. I think this is day 7 of my 5 days a week YouTube challenge. Just posting YouTube videos 5 days a week to get better at it, share my thoughts, share day-to-day life. Here we go. Oh, it's hot. Pretty good. Went on a mastermind call today. We had a guest speaker, Carl Lubbe, Lubbe, Carl. He's an executive coach, predominantly works with leadership teams. And we're focusing on, well, his big theme for his business is clarity, or curiosity. And I think that's so vitally important and such a good way of thinking about things is when you're more curious about others, when you're more curious about the world, that drives growth, that drives innovation, that prevents you from being stagnant. And he had a really good analogy, and he actually used ice tubs in there too, which is funny because you all know I ice tub quite a bit. That, hey, we're doing all these things physically to better ourselves or even mentally to better ourselves, but when was the last time you changed your mind on something important? Which means that you're not mentally challenging yourself or not becoming curious of more in the world. So today we covered conflict resolution. And I had tried to articulate this before, but he had a really good diagram. But I had tried to articulate this before. Julius and I have talked about it. All marriages are going to have some sort of conflict. And we are built, we're to move away from trouble, right? We want to make sure that we move away from pain and trouble. Just automatically, that's kind of what we do. So when there's something threatening something that we want and we think we need, we get defensive and we think that we have to win. And there was another good quote in there. He had a lot of good quotes. If someone wins in the marriage, both people lose. So the idea shouldn't be to win. It should be to understand the other person. And these are biblical principles, right? To love others, to love your neighbor as yourself. And sometimes that is more often than not, that comes down to you living sacrificially, you making the first move. I think one of the most difficult things in conflict resolution or disagreements is being the first one to be vulnerable. Let's say I'm having a disagreement with Jaleesa. We're having a conversation and we disagree on a topic. There's a lot of vulnerability on one of our parts to say, hey, I can see where you're coming from. I can see how that hurts you, and I'm sorry. The reason you feel so vulnerable is because the person might not reciprocate. But again, if we go back to biblical principles, that's not the idea. So we don't love and we don't apologize or repent because we believe the other person should reciprocate. We do that because we're called to do that. You truly wrong someone. And even if you didn't wrong someone, you can still be empathetic to what they're going through, what they're struggling with. So there is a 3A system framework. So I like working in frameworks, and this makes it real simple. Acknowledge, affirm, ask. So acknowledge, say, hey, I can really see you're trying for this. I can really see how this would bug you. And before I get to the other two of affirm and ask and go a little deeper into acknowledge, think about this. When you're arguing with something, you're arguing about a thing, right? So you're sitting, as me and Jalisa have talked about this before, we're sitting across from each other, and there's something in the middle that we're arguing about. And sometimes at the end of the conversation, we don't even know what we're disagreeing on. But that thing in the middle is what we're trying to either avoid pain of or gain for ourselves, right? Because again, if we're trying to win something, both of us lose, but we're trying to avoid pain, move closer to pleasure. Avoid pain, move to pleasure. That's our mind's main objective. So if we're sitting across from each other and we're arguing about this thing, they're going to continue to argue until one person, quote unquote, loses. But what if I walked around this proverbial table, and he used an analogy like this. What if I walked around this proverbial table, sat beside the individual I'm arguing with, and looked at the problem and said, okay, I'm going to acknowledge, hey, so-and-so, I can see how this is causing you this stress. I can see that you've been working hard for this. So I can see that this would be scary for you. And that's all you have to say. So you're affirming that they still have something that's bugging them, even if you do. You're taking that first step of vulnerability, which takes courage. So let me say that it takes courage to be vulnerable, because the other person might not reciprocate, but it's needed for a strong, healthy relationship, a strong, healthy workplace. Then you affirm. You say something like, what's one thing that you're struggling with in this situation that you really wish people would know about? What's something that's really hard for you about this conversation that would be helpful for me to know about? So you're affirming it. You're saying, I hear you, I see you, I'm empathizing. Now let's affirm it. Let's help me really understand. Okay. And I take notes in my operating system. So I'm going to pull my notes up for this. I call it my wisdom bucket. Acknowledge, affirm, ask. You acknowledge the difficulty, you acknowledge the effort. So this can be outside of conflict resolution as a whole. It's better to acknowledge effort than the outcome of it. It's better to acknowledge the input than the output, meaning affirm hard work. Don't just celebrate and don't just affirm KPIs or the outcome of the hard work, because that is not in someone's control. What is in someone's control is hard work, is the work itself, the work ethic, not the outcome. You can celebrate the outcome, and the outcome should be a byproduct of focused hard work. But if you put people in position to think that they're valued because of the output, that's going to create a toxic environment, a toxic culture eventually in home and in the workplace. Then the next thing is to ask, what does it look like with a time frame and a number? What does it look like? What's your desired outcome from this situation? How long does it take, or when can you have it by, or whatever else? So you ask, acknowledge, affirm, ask. And paired with acknowledge is acknowledge the difficulty, affirm the effort, affirm the difficulty of the situation, then ask. Celebrate the wins. Praise effort, not outcome. Cultivate what you celebrate. So you cultivate what you celebrate. If you celebrate outcome, you're cultivating a culture in your home and in the workplace that the outcome is what you value, that people are just a number to you, instead of praising the effort. What would it look like for you to win around this quote unquote tension? So whatever you have a conflict around, winning is a zero-sum game, meaning that if I win and the person I'm disagreeing with loses, we both lose. And there's one winner, there's always two losers, especially in marriage. And I've been married to Jalisa for over 12 years. And let me say this. I think a lot of people in our culture today believe that love is a feeling, not an action. That's why marriage is so powerful, because you're committing to a covenant of loving someone, not of feeling the love, of loving someone in sickness and health and good times and bad. Not just when it's going good, but also when it's going bad. Not just when they're well or when they can serve you, but also when they can't. And that's in the macro and the micro. So when you commit to that, when you commit to acts of love, and in this example today, we're talking about the video, an act of love would be taking the first step of vulnerability. And if they don't reciprocate, that's not up to you. All you know that that's an act of love to affirm or to acknowledge, affirm, and help them win in the situation. And if you go through that scenario, you both actually win, right? They feel heard, they feel seen, and they feel loved. When you commit to loving one another in this holy covenant of marriage and don't rely on the feeling to elicit your actions of love, or don't rely on just on words, because words without actions are empty. When you do that continually, it becomes a deeper, more meaningful, fulfilling relationship where you do have that feeling of love behind it. That love is refined with time when you commit to the action. It's not that you love only when you want to, because that's feelings based. And that's a principle you can think of anywhere else. If I only worked out when I wanted to, I would be out of shape. If I only worked on my businesses when I wanted to, they wouldn't do well. If I ice tubbed only when I wanted to, I would never do it. If I loved my wife only when I wanted to and it served me, I would do it rarely and our relationship would start to break down. So commitment is important. Vulnerability is important. Taking the first step is important. And as you live more Christ-like towards your spouse, towards others, it creates a trust, right? They can see that, hey, they are able to step out courageously and vulnerably and show me this love. Then they start to reciprocate that. Because again, you cultivate what you affirm. You cultivate what you celebrate. Oh, apparently my watch is going. I'm running, but not actually running. So hopefully this is beneficial to you. I found it really beneficial. I like these more abstract, philosophical things. I like frameworks. I like analogies. So it was good for me. Hopefully it was good for you. Let me know your biggest takeaway if this is helpful. And if you found this beneficial, there'll be more videos at the end here that you could benefit from. Subscribe again if you found it valuable. I appreciate you all. Until next time, earn your dopamine.